Cool. So, hello everyone. My name is Mario Loria. Welcome to Orchestructure. Sorry we're starting a little bit late. I want to give people time to file in, get some food, and get going. Feel free to get cozy, get connected to Wi-Fi, and get ready for an excellent talk on serverless applications in AWS from Klick, who's a second timer here. And his first talk was on Terraform. I believe we have it recorded, or at least we have notes from it. So we can link those as well for you in both Slack and on the meetup page. I have a couple of brief announcements that I'm going to get to around local events and things going on, and then we'll give Nick the floor. The first off one is that DevOps Days, Detroit 2018 is fully planned, fully set up, ready to go. You just need to order your tickets. It's happening October 3rd and 4th, and there are some great speakers. Armin Daggar, co-founder of HashiConf, Chris Nova, who's working for Heptio, which George is also working for Heptio, so feel free to bother him. She's done a lot in the Kubernetes community. John Willis, who was with Dr. Inc. and now runs his own consultancy. And then Casey Rosenthal as well, who helped pioneer chaos engineering at Netflix. And a few other really awesome speakers that are going to be there. So definitely go check out the program. There will be links to that stuff on the events page as well. Like I said, there's free shirts to grab, foamy brain things, tons of food. Please eat whatever you can. The next month will be Chris Sheeb. I don't know how to say his last name, on RabbitMQ. More details will be forthcoming. We'll probably create that event pretty soon here in the next few weeks. We're looking for a different location because we like to bounce around. So if anyone's got a place they think would be great, you want to suggest that off, or your office has a great space and could fit 30, 40 people, let me, myself know, or Jeff or George in the back. We're kind of the 4 people. Sorry, I'm the guy that like gets up and talks. They do all the real work. So that's how that actually works. Let's be frank. There is a free event September 12th at the Michigan Theater here in Ann Arbor featuring Ken Segal. He actually did the Think Different campaign. So he was in like the marketing and design, like advertising, right? And he's giving a free talk at the Michigan Theater, and he did Think Different campaigns for BMW and other major car manufacturers. A lot, you know, adjacent to tech as well. Back in the 80s and 90s. So that's a free talk to be given at the Michigan Theater, and that was one of the things that came across my radar that seemed really exciting. So if any of you are not already in it, the main A2 Slack network is pretty fantastic. You can find out about events and jobs, and that's where Orchestructure's Slack channel is also hosted. You can join the over 100 people, like 110 people in our channel, which, I mean, I know 90% of them are like sleeping most of the time, or 115, that's crazy. But so come and talk with other orchestrators. And the last thing I will do is let Criteo, who thank you for hosting for a second time, do a little blurb here for about a minute on what they're doing and what they're looking for.
Yeah, so one of the conditions for us being able to use this space today was that I had to come up and talk to you about the fact that we have a bunch of jobs. They are calling it a hiring spree. We have a whole bunch of developer jobs in different types, senior level jobs to junior level jobs. And one of the big benefits for working at Criteo, there's a lot, but one of them is that they have a generous referral bonus. So remember the name, Matt McClain. I would really like to refer anybody you know. So just get in touch with me. I'm on the Slack channel, m.mcclain@criteo.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. One podcast that actually Jared Leffner, who's sitting back there, recommended to me that I started listening to this month is Streaming in the Cloud, which is quite good. I suggest you look at it. And also, I use Pocket Casts on Android, which is the greatest app ever in the world. And so I have a 50+ minute drive to work, so I burned through a ton of different podcasts. Another one I found is Indie Hackers, which is also very good. So if you ever want to share Indie Hackers, it kind of covers modern companies that are, you know, how they grew from 0 to nothing, or wow. I'm done. Nicholas Klick, everybody.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I guess to just kind of segue there, I think Indie Hackers, it's a really good site, and there's also a good email list about small companies that are kind of bootstrapping and you know, growing up. And it's really, if you're interested in like entrepreneurism, you know, becoming an entrepreneur, it's really, really good, especially in the software space, really good resource. Okay, so serverless architectures with AWS. I guess just start off, how many people are using serverless like right now, or using some sort of technology that you can, okay, so a few people. All right, cool. Not everybody, or else I might skip some of this. So, okay, yeah, my name is Nicholas Klick. It's great to be back at this, this meetup. I work for a company called ActBlue. We're also hiring. We also have a referral bonus, so remember my name. Yeah, just super briefly, what do we do? We're a political donation platform. You may have heard of some of our candidates, and we're growing like hell. So there's a lot of things happening at ActBlue. Anyway, we're here to talk about serverless. What does it even mean? It's definitely a hyped word. Yeah, what does it mean? So serverless, I am using the word server full, but you know, whatever, normal architectures. So serverless is basically cloud computing execution model. So you're kind of stitching together different cloud services to meet some sort of goal. What's unique about it, you don't really have to manage anything about the servers. You don't have to worry about, you know, security of the, well, I shouldn't say that, but there's a lot of specifics that you normally have to, you know, when you're setting up a server by hand or through, you know, Chef or Ansible or whatever, you have to configure way more than you'd have to than if you're using like a Lambda function or something like that. So, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. There's kind of a definition issue with serverless. Some people, it's like they're just functions as a service. Other people, it's cloud databases. But I guess like when I think about it, it's kind of like all of these services that you're kind of stitching together to make, you know, towards some sort of end. Okay. What are some of the perceived benefits of serverless? Supposedly it reduces ops overhead, so you don't have to manage these servers by hand. For example, if I want to scale up a Lambda function, it just automatically, there's, you know, like I can set thresholds for it. And if I want to go above a certain number of like concurrent Lambdas running, I need to request that, because obviously AWS doesn't want you to just be able to like spin up their whole, you know, a million of them or whatever. They can be auto scaling, pay per use, which is probably the most interesting part of it. You can pay per request, versus I can have a server running that maybe isn't used half the time because of how my traffic spikes or whatever else is going on. It's also, another benefit of it is it increases your velocity to be able to get more done, because I don't have to worry about managing the server, or managing the architecture in the same way that we do when we have to, you know, worry about all the pieces. That, and you can kind of focus on building like application like features, which from my perspective as a DevOps person, you know, being able to eat some territory from the application developers is always good. Where can you go serverless? These are the big platforms. I'm going to focus on AWS, but GCP and Azure, they have similar cloud functions, cloud databases, queues, things like that. So whatever you work with, if you don't use one of these, there is an open source project to be able to run serverless applications out of a Docker container. I think it's called OpenFAS, F-A-A-S. So if you're not on one of these platforms and you want to run on your own, look into that. Okay, so I'm going to kind of blow through, like, I guess, like, how many people here are on AWS currently? Okay. Okay, so I'm not going to blow through it. I'll talk a little bit about each one of these. I want to talk about some of the building blocks of what you're going to see, because I have some demos. And if you're not familiar, might be a little bit confusing. So AWS has a number of different services. Lambda is their cloud function. Cloud function is basically a stateless function in the cloud that I can execute, and it can connect to all sorts of different services associated with. It can connect with queues, databases. It can connect with their SNS, their simple notification service, emails, API gateway. So it's kind of like, like it can integrate with all of these different pieces, and you can build kind of workflows out of these functions. I can link them together with intermediary services. Right now, you can do over 1,000 concurrent operations, and it's pretty cheap, 20 cents per million operations. So, depending on, you wouldn't want to use it for everything, but depending on your workflow, it can be a really, really good thing to use. API gateway. Basically, API gateway is a way to build APIs in the cloud. You can basically create a set of endpoints. I can provision the exact methods on each one of those. I can create API tokens. It's super configurable. And that also integrates with all sorts of these other services. So there you can do over 10,000 requests a second, $3.50 per million. So, depending on your load, you probably don't want to use this for every single request. But for us, and what we're looking to use this for is for our contributions. So our average contribution is $34. So, $3.50 per million is a pretty profitable. It doesn't matter. Another,
question?
yeah, what's up?
I think it's easier for me to understand counting requests. I didn't know exactly how you count operations. Because I don't know if a calculation that lasts for a while is an operation.
Yeah,
or
because it fires the function. So once it completes, that's considered to be one operation of the function.
Even if it takes longer than another execution. Like say something takes 2 minutes to run versus milliseconds. Do they still consider?
Yeah, so they throttle it. So there's thresholds for how long it can, how long the function can operate, and then also how much memory it can use. You pay more for using more. So it's not just per operate. It's actually, I should have put a asterisk next to that, because you pay per operation, but you also, if you need to use more memory, you're going to pay more. So should have asterisks next to all the prices. They probably have gone down. SQS is like their, was actually the original AWS service. I don't know, like a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people think it was EC2, but SQS was the original cloud service that they offered. And it's a simple message queue. You can do super configurable and super cheap. So I kind of want to, unless there's any questions, I kind of want to bounce into demos and kind of going into Lambda, because that's kind of the heart of getting workflows, getting serverless workflows running, basically. So basically in Lambda, there's kind of 3 ways that you can get your Lambda code into Lambda. You can just write it in line, and they have an editor, and I'll go through. I'll show you that. You can upload a zip file, which is something that you can do with Terraform, or I'm not sure. I actually don't use CloudFormation, but I'm guessing that there may be a similar functionality there. If you want to have like an external repo for your code and then get that pulled in, zipped up, and pushed up to AWS. You can also, what's that? There it is, yeah. Yeah, so and you can also have it in a file in S3. So yeah, let's go into some examples. I have a couple demos, and if anyone actually has Wi-Fi and is feeling interested in helping me out, if you could just execute demo 1, here, I'm just going to go ahead and do it. And basically what this is doing, I don't have my phone out, but if you do that, what it's doing, let me see here. I think I had a, yeah, so basically what this example is doing is that it's making a request to the API gateway, which has an integration with a Lambda function. And the Lambda function passes that request to a SNS. It's basically going to send text messages. So I've integrated those. And like I can show you the actual. I guess I'm going to dive into each piece of it because it might be a little bit confusing. So okay, so you can see that good. So yeah, this is the interface for API Gateway. And as you can see, you can create a bunch of different, I can create a new API. I've already created one here called example. And it has a couple of resources. I should have renamed this queue, but anyway, it's the example resource, which doesn't make any sense. But anyway, and it has one method called post. Now, basically what happens when that request comes in is that I've integrated this with Lambda here, and you can see that like through the interface, I can integrate with a bunch of different services. If I try to edit this, you can see that there's a ton of stuff. So this is where you can start to think about, okay, if I need to take a web request and I need to get something from that web request into like whatever, for example, I don't even know what some of this is. I think some, like for example, this one I think is a facial recognition API. You can do that directly through the integrations. So if I click on that, I'm not going to go through this because I haven't tested this, but basically, usually what's involved is that you have to make sure that your privileges are such that your API gateway can interact with that service, okay? And sometimes that gets a little bit tricky to make sure that that the privileges are correct, and that usually involves going in and messing, like adding new role, a new policy, and applying those to either the API gateway or the service that it needs to interact with. And so, yeah, so in this case, I don't know if anyone actually did the demo, but in my case, it just sends me a text message. Yeah, so it does that. That's super basic, right? And I want to go into the Lambda function so you can see that. So this is the Lambda interface. I've got a few functions in here, and one of them I named SNS. And to kind of go in, so like you can create Lambda functions using a bunch of different runtimes. So if Node.js isn't your thing, you can use Java or Golang, Python. I think there's a way to utilize other programming languages as well. I've never done that, so I can't really speak to that. But yeah, so if you whatever language feels the most comfortable, you can use that. So in here, I'm not going to go into the JavaScript too much, but basically it's this right here is what is executed. And so it has a context and it has a callback, and the event is what is passed to it from API gateway. Context is like the environmental context that the function runs in, so you can know how long it's been running. You can know, other things that are kind of wrapped up in the environment. And so in this case, super simple. I'm just grabbing the AWS SDK, and I set the region because I'm doing direct text messaging. The only region right now that works in is US East 1. So I just set the region, and I send the text message. Pretty straightforward. And we can go into the SNS. There's actually nothing in SNS to see with this because we're just utilizing the stop. I mean, typically in SNS, you can like create more of like a you can actually store conversations between like yourself and a customer, and then you can analyze those later. So you can start to think about, okay, with this I can kind of I can actually I can connect with a customer through this kind of serverless manner. Obviously, you could do this with any programming language, but this is all completely serverless. Yay! Let's go to the next example because that's a little bit more interesting.
If you connected with the customer, what would be the trigger, the event? It's the customer is reaching out, or you're deciding every so often to.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so you can start to think, okay, maybe like a retailer, they or like an online retailer, they get an order. Maybe it's for order confirmation. Maybe it's for order updates. You could do marketing campaigns. I know people don't like those text messages, but you could do it. You can start to think about, okay, if I have someone's phone number, I can connect with them. So,
can I ask a
yeah.
Your screen had so many options on it, I couldn't really focus.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Did you author this, or did you select it from some pre-existing?
This?
Yeah, that code right there. Did you author that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Okay, but are there selectable cans?
Yeah. So let's take a second. So if I create a function, so if I want to author it from scratch, I can just say like whatever. And I'm going to choose, so I choose a role which defines the permissions of the function. Okay, it defines like what it has access to in my architecture. Whatever, I'm just going to grab something. So here's blueprints. This is what you're after, right? So there's blueprints right here. So there's a bunch of pages of stuff of where I don't even know what some of this stuff does. Let's type in, I don't know, like which service do you want to interact with? Like S3 maybe? Facial recognition?
Try typing recognition.
Recognition.
Yeah.
This one?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so here, so this is giving me a few more. So it's actually going through, and you can see it's got some policies associated with it, with the blueprint. There's a trigger. I'm guessing that this one, I didn't even look at the description of it.
So on upload to an S3 bucket, it'll run recognition, their facial stuff. on the uploaded file in S3. It's a specified bucket.
But these blueprints are Amazon authored or
contributed by users? Yeah, so, well, I can't guarantee that it's authored by Amazon, but they appear to be default examples that you can use. There's also this application repo. Let's see what's in here. So this looks like it's actually, let me see. I don't know, let's see, definition. Again, I don't even know what these are doing, but
yeah, but if you selected one of those blueprints, you could get to the source code. It's not a black box.
Right. Well, actually, what it's going to do with the blueprints, it's going to give me the source code for the Lambda. Right. It'll just it'll just probably copy the template, and then I'll have it there, and I can customize it. But in this one, I feel like this is actually going to create multiple resources, not just a Lambda. Because some of these look like they're actually going to deploy like an RDS instance, or this is going to create an API gateway endpoint. So yeah, this is probably a really good way to test, like other things that people have done. Or to, again, we're stitching together these services for like workflow purposes. And so yeah, this is another way to do it. So I guess going back to the functions, I guess, were there any other questions about, yeah? No, there's tons of ways to trigger the Lambda, yeah. And actually, in my next example, I'll go into another way of doing it, yeah. Yeah, so, and that might not even be the only way to do it. Again, it's kind of like a whole, what's that?
For any kind of very first process, use the Lambda.
Yeah, so from my understanding, you cannot, that API gateway is the way to interact with the Lambda through a web request. I am going to explain later on how you can get a static IP on a Lambda, which is kind of interesting, so that you can whitelist it, or you can always because like the IP can move around, obviously. So
we had Lambda functions that triggered by files showing up in S3. So
yeah.
If you drop a file in S3 bucket, a Lambda function can pick it up, do something with it, and stick it somewhere else.
Right, totally. Yeah, and I'm gonna, so yeah, I'll just go in the next demo because I have another way of doing it too. So yeah, if we run this this other example, basically, I'm gonna go ahead and run this. Okay, and so what this just did, I'm gonna go into here. Sorry, I'm bouncing around. So what this just did is, this went through API gateway, went into a Lambda, which took my request and put it into SQS. So now my JSON block is sitting there in SQS, which is a queuing service, okay, waiting. Okay, and I've attached a CloudWatch event to this Lambda, okay, and I've disabled it for now, and I'll go into that so you can see it. I'll go into every step of that so you can just see it, so it's not so abstract. Okay, so this is my gloriously named example resource. So yeah, it's an API gateway endpoint. It's a post endpoint, and it integrates with a Lambda function that I'm calling on queue. We go in and take a look at that. Yeah, and so actually right here you can see the visual integration of how it links those two services together. You can kind of WYSIWYG this. I don't know. Don't necessarily recommend it, but you can. So this is the code that takes that request and it puts it into SQS. And you can see at the top there's the queue URL. I don't know if you can read that. Let's see. Well, that a little bit better? Okay. Yeah, I'm probably trying to make the box bigger here. There we go. Okay, so yeah, you can see the queue URL. Super simple. It's just putting the message body into the queue URL. And then if we go into the queue, you can see we can actually watch this happen live. Oops. So we can start polling. If someone else wants to try it, that'd be cool. Just so you don't think I'm lying. So yeah, so I've got all these messages in here. Yeah, so some of them were from earlier. And so they're just sitting in here, okay? Waiting. And what I can do is I can hook up a CloudWatch event rule. I named it run DQ every minute. And basically what this is going to do is it's going to run my DQ Lambda every minute. And I can go in here and we can look at. So I've just set, like you can use a cron or you can just set it to a fixed amount there. Any questions? Let's see. We can also build an event pattern. I've never done that. So I don't. I'm guessing that you can do a number of events in a row on a particular schedule. So anyway, yeah, it runs this DQ Lambda. And if I turn it on, let's see. I can go ahead and just turn that on. Let's see if anyone else made it in. Oh, okay. Everyone used my phone number though. Sorry, I should have been more. So yeah, I should have been more clear. You can change it to your phone number and your name. All right. Note to self. Yeah, if you change it to your phone number and your name, then you'll get the text message, not me. So okay, we've got all this stuff. Why don't I go ahead and I'll clear it and then we can try again.
Why don't you just DQ it?
I'm just going to purge it and then there. Now people can add their own telephone number and their own name in there. And I have enabled, okay, so that's enabled now, should be. So every minute this is going to execute. And we'll go into the DQ function and what that's doing. So what this is doing, And I'll blow that out a little bit. You can see it. Okay. So what this is going to do is this is going to take that message and it's just going to send it to a proxy that I just this PHP script that I set up. So it sends it there, and then it's actually going to send it back to our original endpoint. Okay, I just wanted to demonstrate. Okay, I can dequeue something, I can hit an endpoint, and then I can reuse that other one. But it's gonna, so that PHP script is just gonna modify the, it's just gonna add, or no, it doesn't do it here. It actually does it in the, it's probably easier to see, huh? Yeah. Let's see. Does it do that? Oh no, that's in the other one. Sorry. So where did that go? Oh wait. I'm in the wrong place, sorry. I'll go. Where am I? Oh, I see what happened. Okay. SNS, that's it. Yeah, it's just going to add this little, this PS sent via proxy. So if it actually goes through the queue, at the proxy endpoint, it just adds another, it like appends something to the JSON, and then it's kind of silly, but anyway, basically I wanted to be able to show that it was going through another endpoint. And so this setup looks like this, basically. And I wanted to show, I wanted to demonstrate, why is this not loading? Okay. I wanted to demonstrate kind of linking together Lambdas and showing that was possible. So like I said, like our original request, it goes through API gateway into the Lambda. The Lambda, it gets queued up into SQS. I've got a CloudWatch rule that runs every minute, which runs this DQ Lambda. And that pulls it off the queue. It sends it to this PHP script, which just sends it back to the original API gateway that I had. It goes to the SNS Lambda function, and then it sends a text message through SNS. I kind of just wanted to demonstrate how can we like link these things together. You can start to get an idea of maybe things that you'd be able to use it for. And I guess I can kind of talk about what we're thinking of using it for at ActBlue, because like I said, at ActBlue, I didn't talk much about ActBlue, but maybe I can do that.
Can I ask a question on that previous slide?
Yeah.
Did you draw that icons, or is that all built?
Yeah, it's Cloudcraft. It's like an illustration
But that's
software.
not linking the services together. That's just a visualization.
Well, what's cool about it, if you pay for it, is they will actually visualize what you have deployed.
Oh.
Yeah. And scarily, you can actually add things to their interface, and it will deploy them. I don't recommend that, but you can, just from a visualization standpoint, it's kind of cool.
Yeah. So another question is, in actual production, you're using Lambdas. I assume you're using Node mostly.
We are, yeah.
So how long are these Lambdas typically in real life?
How long are it? Like the function, like the?
Well, I mean lines.
Well, that like like you saw, it's pretty small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In production, do they get bigger? Or are they single purpose or short?
I mean, I think that how you'd want to architect it would be like single purpose. You know what I mean? At least that's how I would think about it, because like, and when I get into some of the gotchas around it, like you know, I think that you're going to want to isolate like this, what this thing is doing, like within the architecture. So So I guess, are there any other questions at this point? Is anyone confused? I think this is dumb.
I guess when you said the same API, is it really the same as the one that came in?
No. This is that other. It's at that other endpoint.
Other end.
So I've got two endpoints. But this was the original one. Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, from the demo one.
Okay, I got it.
You can get infinitely complex, right? Or you could just copy and paste one of their, blueprints and call it a day. Is there any other questions or anything I can?
I guess I have a general question on if you have something that requires, say, you have some packages that go along with what, so you're going to do that later?
No. So the packages are interesting. So I actually had a problem with Node.js getting. It was easier to end like just writing pretty raw like JavaScript than to have to deal with getting the packages in and which ones were supported on AWS. So that's something to consider. I don't know if other people who have used Lambda have had better luck with whatever packages you were trying to use. But normally, like, you try to keep it simple. You know what I mean? Try to keep the function pretty simple, like what it's doing.
But if you want to do a math calculation that you only do like once a day, you crunch some numbers on something.
Right.
You get a data feed.
Yep.
And it requires, I'm thinking that if I do this in Python, I need additional packages. And I just, think about loading those. And
yeah, I mean, you might be able to. I mean, yeah, it's definitely.
Generate Lambdas, but we don't have things like that.
Oh, geez, you're fine. Keep going. Some questions. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then, but you don't need the whole thing. You only need stuff there.
They don't have. Okay.
Okay, cool. So I guess if it's cool, I'm gonna cruise through the rest of it and just try to write down and remember your questions, and we can talk about it at the end if that's cool. No, it's totally cool. So yeah, I was going to talk just briefly about what we're thinking to do at ActBlue, or what I'm testing currently. So right now we have a situation where we have our contribution form where the people put in their information, and their credit card information is living on Fastly. We cache it on Fastly. But the request ends up in a Rails app. Okay, so eventually we have the situation where if the Rails app is down, everything is down. Right now that means that we're processing about $100 million a month. So $1 to $10 million a day. So every minute that we're down, I haven't calculated it, but it's serious. So we're trying to figure out how can we capture all the contribution requests and make sure that we have them. And if the rest of the infrastructure is down, it doesn't matter. We can still take contributions. Our Rails app can be down, and our admins and campaigns and stuff, they cannot use it, but actual the hundreds of thousands of people that are contributing can still, they won't even know. So that's where this comes in, and basically I'm thinking to use something kind of like what I demonstrated, and that's what I've been testing, is essentially having an API gateway, a Lambda, queuing up that JSON block in a queue, and then basically on a regular, every minute, and likely this Lambda will not just be a single one. It'll probably be several others, coming off of it, so that this Lambda will just be for triggering the other ones to take the contributions off the queue, so we can kind of have like hundreds of them running concurrently. So, and then from there, forwarding the request onto our Rails app to, so we can either go through this what I'm calling pipeline, or we can do it the regular way. So we have more options. That's kind of where the kind of practical piece comes in. And I'm sure that I've definitely heard of people using that type of workflow in like e-commerce circumstances, or in bank processing. Like whenever you have a service that could be down significantly, and you want to be able to capture requests and then later process them. So that's kind of what we're thinking to do. And yeah, I wanted to go into a couple other random things that might be interesting. But I could also skip it if we just want to go into questions. No, keep going? Okay. Yeah, so kind of bouncing in and out of the presentation, sorry. So the interesting thing about Lambdas is that they don't have, it's a cloud function. How can you get a static IP? So for example, if I had, like in my circumstance, when I want to, how do I know that, how can I whitelist my contribution request so that I know that it's coming from a secure source, right? So what you can do is you can actually wrap your Lambda in a few things. And it kind of looks like this. This is pretty close to what I'm talking about, where you have, you basically have a Lambda that's inside a private subnet, okay? And there's a NAT gateway that it can NAT out through in the public subnet. And you can assign an elastic IP to the NAT gateway, okay? So then I can whitelist that elastic IP, and I can, I can control my, I can securely know that my requests are coming from where I want them to only. So that's kind of an interesting pattern, and definitely a pattern that I'm thinking to use for when, like when I have Lambdas that are going to be processing, like dequeuing the request and sending it to our Rails app. Kind of random. We use Terraform, and I wanted to show some of the Terraform code that's involved, just for your edification. So, yeah, something got screwed up here. Where's that? There it is. So I wanted to show one thing in here. So like one thing that you can do, so like I was talking about, like how do you get your code into a Lambda? So in Terraform, what you can do is you can actually, I can generate, I can basically have a source directory where I have all the functions, and I can zip those up and push those up to Lambda. I can associate that archived file with my Lambda function, and it will use that. And so, and like one of the gotchas that I'm going to go into that, I don't know, I'm kind of going all over the place here, but and maybe I should just segue into that, because one thing that I've run into with working on this is that it's a lot easier to work in the Amazon console for debugging purposes. So like, so the first thing that I've been doing is I've been working in the actual, I've been building out my Lambda code in the console, doing all my testing, getting it to work, okay? and then from there, my idea was to basically take that and put it into a separate repo where I can have tests against it. So actual like unit tests against the functions. And then I can pull it in to Terraform through that archive file and upload the zip that way. So at ActBlue, we're trying to get everything into Terraform. We've just had so many issues with things being black boxed with different people and not having transparency around who knows what and where things are. So it's really important that we eventually get this out of some random, like function and into source code that's on GitHub. So let's see. Let's go down here. So yeah, in terms of issues that I've seen with this, like it's kind of annoying. Like it can be kind of annoying to. I think I'm trying to remember what I was thinking of deployment. I'm gonna come back to that. So we already talked about the dependencies, where sometimes there can be dependencies that are not supported on AWS. So if you already have some Python code that you're using, you're not going to just be able to like copy and paste it into Lambda function, depending on like the version of the or the dependencies. So you're gonna potentially have to rewrite things. Testing is kind of annoying. Testing is really, I didn't actually demonstrate a test on the Lambda function, but they have, like, you can write your own, they have like configurable tests that you can create. And you just click a button and it runs it. But how do you know that it's gonna continue working over time? That's kind of the gray area. I guess I can have some canaries, or I can have some alerts or some checks around making sure that the thing still does what it should do. And then there's the regional support aspect, which is sort of not documented. There's certain features, certain services that, like I said, it took me a while to figure out that I could only send text messages through US East 1. So there's certain services that only support certain features in certain regions. So you kind of have to debug all that. There's actually some of these don't make any sense. So like the error responses can sometimes be confusing because, again, when you're chaining, when you're kind of chaining services, you want to be able to test each piece, right? So what's good about the testing is that, like, a lot of the services, they allow you to test each individual service on its own. But when you're looking for the kind of integration of things, it can get a little bit murky. Unfortunately, the docs are not always up to date. It seems like I found a lot of good Stack Overflows and gists on, people coming up with examples. And then logs can be kind of, basically, if you get your logs into like CloudTrail or into a third-party logging solution, you can have more exposure around it over like whether the functions are operating properly, because like sometimes Amazon logs can be pretty bulky in terms of like weeding through every single request or every single thing that's happening. So that was another issue that I've run into. Yeah, I guess, does anyone have any questions at all? Yeah.
How you go from one Lambda to another? Do that directly and synchronously. So if I've got a single Lambda that serves up something like next to a search database, and then I've got 3 or 4 other Lambdas that need to use that code but don't want to slurp that code up themselves, can they hit that Lambda directly?
I've definitely seen an example of that, yeah, where you pull in the SDK, basically just reference the Lambda that you want to execute or pass the
But
That's
that's
the-
the go through like API gateway.
No, yeah. I guarantee you can go from Lambda to Lambda, yeah. Because, actually in the project that I'm working on, I'm taking requests off the queue and then, I'm having one Lambda trigger a bunch of other ones. And those are taking them off the queue.
But you can do that synchronously, so like inside the single request. If you need to.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can. Yeah.
And then the other question I have was, do you have a pipeline with all of that? So it can actually run through full integration tests, deploys to a tested environment, et cetera, pushes it through the whole pipeline?
Right now, I do not. Trying to think if I saw any, I've heard of, I mean, it's kind of, you're kind of already in production. You know, you're kind of like already like scale, like already, you're already there. So your tests would need to, like I said, it's like you need to like verify that like, oh, that function still, so that's like, I think that there's a framework called Serverless. Serverless is confusing. There's a serverless framework called Serverless, where you can do tests, or you could do, I don't know if through like, like server spec or in-spec, whether you can test resources like that. I know that I was at ChefConf a few months ago, and they were talking about how they had like they were building out their AWS coverage. It's still really limited, you know. So like the coverage would be able to test out exactly what is running and functioning. And so I'd be curious to hear if you actually went through and did that.
We're going to be looking into it.
Cool.
We use pipelines for everything. I know my QA people are not going to be happy if I go to them and say, oh, we just have to deploy this straight to prod or even straight to test. Bring up, a Lambda that does exactly what the code is supposed to do, test it, and then promote it up the chain.
Right.
You should be able to do that, right? Suppose you're triggering this through API gateway or whatever, then you set up a full parallel environment to run it with that.
Yeah, no, it's not a question of is it doable. I'm mostly looking for, is there a tool that anyone has used to do that they would recommend or not recommend?
Right.
So this is of user adoption, getting new but yeah, I say doing that thing, we could be able to work from other components to set up maybe you use these stages, we get that QA and just add some scripts which will do the serverless functionality. I mean, they say like a hundred just deploy state this state.
Cool. Yeah.
Have you had any issues with false starts in Lambda? So you don't have a low tolerance for like
Right.
response within that.
Yeah, I've definitely like we don't have this in production yet, so I don't have that type of experience, but I've definitely noticed that you kind of have to warm them, like have a warming request to like get it. Yeah, so maybe that's where now with us, we're always, have so much traffic that we probably wouldn't run into that situation. Unless we use it as a failover mechanism, you know what I mean? Where if the workflow became like which is something that we're debating. Do we make it a failover mechanism or is it just the default? I'm actually pushing for it to be the default because I think it's a lot clearer and gives us more options. Yeah, did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Can you purge your queue? Because I've gotten like 50 times.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've gotten them too.
Yeah, I will.
Oh, it's getting it every minute.
Exactly.
It doesn't actually it doesn't remove it.
Yeah, you found the one remaining thing I didn't do.
It remove it.
You're gonna have to like check your code with us first before you present. We don't want any bugs or anything like that. So.
Right.
Nick is gonna hang around. So should you. Everyone can ask Nick questions, and he'll provide his contact details to you on the meetup page and jump in Slack, I think, at some point. So thank you very much for coming. This is a really good toy. It's stressful for at work. So just so you know, we should grip strength when we go to the gym. Thank you guys for coming. I want to thank our sponsors, LlamaSoft, the CNCF, and Fly.io, who have been amazing at keeping the flow of money so we can do things like give you free food at every meetup, jump around to different locations, swag, stickers, all of that fun stuff. And so thank you very much. Talk to you later. Thanks, Nick.